August, September, October, and it went to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission forwarded it to this body. Before this body acted on it, there was discussion about the needs assessment that was close to starting or envisioned, and so the council decided to wait on adopting the code until we had the needs assessment in place. So that's what this is a presentation by Scott and Steve of that final needs assessment. It was just completed.
So I'm sure you all spent your holiday weekend reading 63 pages of the needs assessment, memorizing everything that's in there.
Kendall probably did.
Yeah, Kendall read it twice, he told me.
He'd already seen it.
Yeah. And the needs assessment is a very complicated document. There's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of really good information in there. But I thought today we'd just kind of touch on some of the highlights of it without getting into all the details. Some of it you probably already know. Some of it you probably would be surprised by. But basically the purpose of the needs assessment, well, first of all, affordable housing is, you want income restrictions, you want sales price restrictions if it's for sale, or rental rate restrictions, and you want it permanently affordable as much as you can. And the reason for the needs assessment is the state statute requires every 5 years for a county to look at the need for housing for different income brackets, particularly moderate income housing, which is 80% median income and below. And here in Wasatch County, the median income for 2017 just came out. It's $73,000 for a family of 4. And basically, I'm not sure what's being shown.
Nothing yet.
Okay. Yeah, so at 80% median income for a family of 4, that's $58,400. So that's your target group.
The top end of the target group.
The top end of the target group, and it's based on household size, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 person households, different income brackets. And again, area median income, AMI, is the standard, and usually that's broken down into extremely low income, which is 30%.
There, his microphone just went off.
Very low income. Okay. Very low income, which is 50% and below. Low income, which is basically 50 to 80%. And then the study addresses also the need for 80 to 120%. So we'll talk about that in a little while. So you're supposed to do a needs assessment estimating that need every year, every 5 years. And then take that needs assessment and come up with a plan to provide a realistic opportunity to meet the need for additional housing for long-term projections based on that needs assessment. And the key is you can't use the land management code to restrict people in those income brackets from living in the community. Just to summarize a couple of the key findings, and some of this information we'll deal with a little bit later, but it's pretty shocking. There's for a 5-year assessment, and this was done by James Wood at the University of Utah, who's been doing this for probably 40 plus years, and he does a lot of the construction evaluations, represents the builders associations, the realtors associations, and really is a handle on Utah as a county. But he's suggesting that in the 5-year needs assessment for rental units below 50% AMI, there's a need for at least 250 units. And
sorry, AMI 73.
73,000. Yeah.
And at 50%.
That is,
which would be roughly 37.
36,500 for a family of 4. Right.
Then we're 250 units short currently.
Yeah, for the below 50% AMI, and there's an acute need for below 30%, which is extremely low income people. And again, median income is half above, half below, so by definition, 30% means 50% of your population. He also shows a need for rental units for higher income, 80 to 120%. And I'll talk about that later as we go through this study, but he's showing 80 to 100 units in that range too. So these would be households that are not currently covered under the code. He's showing for owner-occupied, again, for that higher income, 80 to 120%, a need for about 240 units, and that's countywide. And then he also did an evaluation of the in-lieu fee, which is one of the reasons we did the needs assessment, because right now the in-lieu fee is $28,000, which was probably around 2002, 2003 established, so it's out of whack. So he's suggesting about $85,000, and he'll go through that as we go through. So those are kind of the highlights, but a lot of different charts and tables and evaluations of employment, of wages, all the different households. Very complete study. But basically, some of the interesting statistics in there. Housing in the unincorporated county, 54% of it is not owner-occupied. So it's either rented or second homes.
50, say that's
54%. And that's in the county. When he did the study, he did it broke down in 3 areas: the unincorporated Wasatch County, Heber, and Midway. So what I'm addressing tonight is primarily in just Wasatch County, although some of it has relevance to the entire county.
Was it a lot different in the cities?
It's all similar. I think Midway has a higher unoccupied, permanently occupied ownership. And another interesting statistic, right now the median price for the entire county is $404,200, which is up 58% from 2012. So I think everybody's aware that prices.
the median, area median
The median price.
value, property value.
Yeah, it's $404,000. So that's up almost 58% from just 6 years ago. It was 5 years ago.
How much?
58%. Yeah, so there's been quite a bit of appreciation. And also in that same, in the last 5 years, there's been an increase in the rents by 13.5%. So that's, you're seeing that overall the rents in the entire community have gone up proportionally to real estate prices. And there's virtually no there's no vacancies now. It's almost impossible to find a rental unit.
Do you do a lot of these around the state? Or are you familiar with other areas?
Yeah, we work primarily in Summit County and Wasatch County.
They're probably 2 of the highest as far as that not owner occupied and value probably. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, we've also done some consulting for Grand County to Moab area, similar, but I would say that probably those counties as well as Washington County maybe to some extent, we're unique in this area because we're very much a resort-based area, as is Moab, but to some extent St. George area. But what's interesting is, for a long time, Summit County was the only county doing deed restrictions. There's been some work down here in Wasatch County, but now all of the jurisdictions, all the counties in the state are coming to us saying, we've got this need, we need to do something about it. What can we do? They're looking at community land trust now, they're looking at deed restrictions, they're looking at inclusionary zoning, which are tools that we've used for a long time. But because wages have remained stagnant and real estate prices have just skyrocketed, everybody's got the same situation. Population increase, basically that from 2010 to 2016 was about 22.3% in the unincorporated county. You're well aware that you're one of the fastest growing counties in the state and in the country. Another interesting statistic was the Hispanic population. About 78% of them were renters, only 22% owner-occupied, compared with about 30% of the whole county population. And 53% of the Hispanic population is below the poverty level. But still, in the unincorporated county, it's still 87% classified as white. County average wage, which is $36,204, is actually 83% of the state wage. And that's, again, because of this kind of resort community where there's a lot of restaurants.
Low-wage jobs.
Low-wage jobs, yeah. So even though the median income is fairly high compared to the rest of the state, the average wage is very low compared to the rest of the state. Countywide job increases from 2001 to 2015 went up, almost doubled from 4,700 to 8,800 jobs. But what's interesting is in 2002, 1,700 workers commuted into the county, and now it's, actually the number's higher than this. He's got different tables, but it's 5,100, almost 5,200 commuters come into the county now to work. And that's 58% of the total employment. So people are living outside the county. They can't afford to live where they work, or they choose not to live where they work. So
Did he do any on where they're coming from?
Yes.
County, Salt Lake County?
yeah, there's a table, and I recall that 14% was from Summit County, and awful lot from Utah County and Salt Lake County. And the other comment he made in there, which says high-income households generally don't work, which you have a population here that doesn't work, a fair amount of it. Again, just some other general information, and this is very unusual for almost any, 60% of the rentals are single-family homes, where usually there's a lot of apartments and maybe 20 to 30% of homes are in the rental pool. And by single-family homes, that means condos as well as townhouses too, so that would distort it. There's 567 apartments that are restricted and market, and that's all the apartments that exist in the county, and again, there's no vacancies. And of the, there's 12% of the inventory of rentals are income restricted, low-income housing tax credit units, which is sixth highest in Utah. So there's a fairly high percentage. I think it's 21% in Summit County, but here it's 12%, which means there's a fairly substantial amount of income restricted rental units, which shows that there is a need for assistance with apartments. Then the other interesting statistic, the median age now is 30, which is a little bit lower than it was before, but the people over 65 have increased from 8% to 12% of the population. So there's a younger population developing, but an older population growing. And another interesting statistic is there's one job for every 3 people that live in the county. Where the reverse of that in Summit County, there's 1.4 jobs for everybody that lives in the county. So a lot of people coming into the community. Only 15% of the employees actually live in the county where they work in the county. As I said, 58% come into the county, and 70% of the people that work in the county leave the county to work. They go to Salt Lake or Provo or some other place. So a high influx of employees and a high outflux of those people living here, which is 8,882 people actually leave the county to go to work in the state.
Does anything show, I would suspect those that are leaving the county are leaving for a higher paid job than those that are coming in.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you've got because you're higher real estate, you've got people able to afford it, not working in the county. So you've got them going outside the county, and again, because of the higher real estate, you've got people who work here coming into the county. So in terms of the assessment of affordable rentals, as I mentioned, there's a deficit between 30 and 50% AMI and over 80 to 120%. The county as a whole, which includes Heber and Lake, has the second highest percentage of rental households with severe cost burdens. And that means they pay over 50% of their income for rent and utilities for housing. So, and that's considered severe. So it's
Is 50% the point where it becomes severe, or is it something over 35 or 40 or?
Between 30 and 50 is called burdened, and this is
Oh,
severe.
so 50
yeah.
goes trip severe.
Yeah, so these are really heavy burdens. And there's 610 renter households under 50% AMI that are severely cost burdened. So, again, the projections are for under 50% is about 250 units. He's suggesting 24 units for seniors, and there's a burden of for 50% AMI and below, which Prestige Senior Living Center currently helps. And there's the second senior center is going to actually target that 50 to 80% AMI for higher income than what the existing one is.
We're good now. I don't know if you want to go back and skim.
No, we don't want to go back. We can go back as you have some questions when we go through this. Another interesting thing is owner-occupied at that 80 to 120% range of income. 3 out of 4 households actually own a house, and that's one reason they're burdened, I think, a lot of them, because they were lucky enough to get housing, but they still pay a lot. So if you want to maintain that ratio of 3 out of 4 people in that income bracket, that's how they calculated in the next 5 years with the population growth, that you need about 240 units of ownership in the county and 98% in the unincorporated county. And then they're projecting a need for about 100 to 125 units to get between 80 and 120% AMI, which comes to about 250,000 to 350,000 are going to be needed as the population grows. Just an interesting quote in there. He said there's very little in the way of affordable housing sales in 2016. So that would be market sales that were reported. Virtually none of it reached 80% or below group. So owner-occupied housing below 80% AMI is non-existent. So this is one of the reasons we are discussing what to do about this. Severe cost burden for homeowners. 406 households in the unincorporated county are severely cost burdened. So even if they're owners, if they own a home right now, they're extremely burdened, and we'll have to discuss whether or not you want to try to reach this group as well. So one of the things we're doing in this report is determining the in-lieu fee and trying to come up with a formula for that. And basically this chart shows, if you look down at the bottom, he's done the calculations using, the definition is in there, but basically you look at the cost of a mortgage and down payment and housing costs, taxes, insurance, and that type of thing. And between 50 and 80%, the maximum that can be paid is $221,000. So at 80% income, $221,420 would be the maximum. And basically, how he's come up with a number for the average cost is, you take the hard cost of constructions, he figures about 70% of that, and this is the market value, 70% of that is construction costs, the other is selling costs and land. So that comes to an average of $227 per square foot for our construction costs. And then he's taken, and that includes land and soft costs. So he's taken a moderately priced home of 1,350 square feet times $227, and he comes to $306,450 would be the moderately priced home, which is in the code currently. And 80% of that, 80% AMI would be $221,420, as we showed in the previous page, what they can afford in the unincorporated county. And the gap is $85,000. So that's how you calculate.
So that would be if you compare the old to the new, it would be the 28 versus the 85. Is that
85,000 would be how he would calculate an in-lieu fee. And it's different in the city and Midway because the different incomes. It's higher in the Heber City because the incomes are lower, and a lower fee in Midway because the incomes are higher.
County there, throughout the state, how does that stack up throughout the state? I know Parks is probably a lot higher than that, it might be 150,000 or so.
Well, currently, Summit County is $86,610, but that goes back a long ways too. They had a needs assessment in 2010 that showed 128,000, and they decided not to, this is after the recession, so they decided not to burden the developers with it, but they are currently going through an evaluation again, and I think it was, do you remember what that was?
Well, they're part of this, no, this.
No, this is just Wasatch County. It was closer to 168,000 or something like that. Park City had an in-lieu fee for years of about $129,000, and they increased it to almost $220-some thousand, and they're going to increase it again, probably over $300,000. So, yeah, it's to reflect the change in the markets and cost of construction, et cetera.
So is still up there compared to the rest of the counties throughout the state, isn't it?
You know, most counties don't have in-lieu fees because they don't have inclusionary zoning. So it's coming, but right now they don't have it. I'm not aware of any other county that actually is implemented, which means they have an in-lieu fee. They might have some structure where they, similar to what you had here before, where they charge a fee for affordable housing, but it's not considered an in-lieu fee like we have here in Wasatch County.
Can I ask a question on that, though? You said you didn't include Heber, but our money pools with Heber.
Yeah, he did a separate calculation for Heber, which is a higher amount, and a separate calculation for Midway. And the next point is the policy discussions, and this is one of the things that we had a brief discussion about with the code changes, is do you want that money to go into the pool, or do you want to have more control over it yourself? Because I think the comment from one of you was that most of the money that's gone to the housing authority has come from Wasatch County as opposed to Heber or Midway.
Heber's was 106,000, and Midway's was only 49.
Right, but what I'm saying is the money collected, I understand the money collected from the unincorporated area may not be sufficient to satisfy all the needs of the unincorporated area. But when it was set up that the money that the unincorporated collected would go then to help in Heber and Midway, which had lower costs of housing. The costs of housing in the unincorporated area are higher than the costs of housing in the incorporated areas. I mean, that was the purpose of it. So I'm not quite catching the point if we're only looking at one portion of it, but our system relies on putting it into a lower cost area.
Right. Yeah, but again, we were asked to do this for the 3 different jurisdictions, and he's calculated those fees for each jurisdiction. That doesn't mean that's what you have to adopt. That doesn't mean any other jurisdictions have to adopt it. If you want to come up with a common plan and a common fee, that can be done as well too. So again, these are just numbers for your benefit, and then what you need to do with these is take the numbers, take what's here, and come up with some policy questions and discussions. One of them, which is still unresolved, is the contract with Mountainlands Community Housing, which Ms. Kendall and I have discussed several times. We responded to the RFP last February, and we still don't have an agreement, even though we've done a lot of work on the needs assessment and the code changes and everything. So that's one thing that needs to be cleared up. And then you need to decide what income groups you want to target and come up with this 5-year plan potentially as to how you're going to address those. And one recommendation we might make, as the study shows, is right now the code deals with up to 80% AMI, which is what the state defines as moderate income housing that you have to deal with. But it's clear that there's a issue with 80 to 120%. So you might want to adjust the code and put some other provisions in there dealing with that 80 to 120%. And again, other issues are, do you want affordable housing for Wasatch County developments to be in Wasatch in the unincorporated area of the county, or do you want them to be in Heber or Midway or other areas, or do you care? And then there's some other issues with, for example, I know in some areas of the county, there are small cabins. Do you want to require affordable housing there? Do you want some of the lots that are minimum acre lots in some areas? Do you want to require affordable housing there? So there's a lot to discuss going forward from a policy standpoint. And then the other thing is, it shows a need, and theoretically, future development is mitigating the effect that that development, whether it's commercial or residential, has on the future need, not taking care of the current need. And again, the 5-year projection is based on growth, population growth as well, so you may or may not want to try to do more than just what's required with the inclusionary zoning. And then right now it's 10% for residential, and the study that we were receiving funding for as of July from the Mountainlands Association of Government, the next study that will be done will be a nexus study to show what the effect of residential development is on the need for affordable housing, as well as what the effect of commercial development is on employee generation, which affects affordable housing. So those are...
One thing we talked about was perhaps having a different scale. The impact of a residential wouldn't be made the same as an employer that's going to have 40, 50 people.
But also that scale could be done on the side of the project too.
Right.
Out of 10-unit subdivision, will have less impact than 50.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what this study will show, is what, and also different prices and different types of units too, because does a 1,000 square foot condo have the same effect as a 5,000 square foot home? So that's to come, and that'll be the study that you'll use to adjust 10% up or downward, whatever it might be. And then again, the adjustment to the allude fee is a critical part of this study. And then as per the statute, one of the things you need to do is develop a 5-year goal and say, here's what we're going to do about it. And it may be identifying certain things. And I can think of several things we might do in the code. For example, an affordable unit equivalent is 900 square foot, 2-bedroom right now. But maybe if somebody targets 50% and below, they get like 1.25% credit. Or if they target at 80 to 120%, maybe they get 70.75% target. But they're able to sell it for more. So there's a lot of mixes that can be applied to. So again, these are items to be discussed and to come. But generally, the needs assessment shows a very critical